Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Dhananjay Andure, Professor and Head, Department of Biochemistry, Dr. Vittal Patel Medical College, Ahmednagar. In today's yet another subtopic under the enzymes is we are going to discuss today, and that is nothing but the enzyme inhibition. Actually, this enzyme inhibition is being utilized clinically for so many processes and so many surgical processes, as well as for the treatment point of view, for the treatment for the various clinical conditions of the patients. So we should know what is exactly the enzyme inhibition is. The any substance which reduce the activity of certain enzymes is called as inhibitor, and the overall process is called as enzyme inhibition. Actually, in this enzyme inhibition, as the name itself suggests, the activity of the enzyme is being inhibited via that either the chemical reaction speed is decreased or it is completely stopped. So the I, by inhibiting the enzyme activity, the chemical reaction is either it is reduced or completely stopped, and this process of either decreasing or completely stopping the enzymatic activity, and via that in turn decreasing the speed of chemical reaction or stopping the chemical reaction is called as an enzyme inhibition. When you completely study what is enzyme inhibition, it has been divided into three major classes: reversible inhibition, irreversible inhibition, and allosteric inhibition. Coming the very first type, that is reversible inhibition. Reversible inhibition is in turn divided into three types: competitive reversible inhibition, non-competitive reversible inhibition, and uncompetitive reversible inhibition. Let us discuss one by one. Very first is the competitive reversible inhibition. As the name suggests, there should be some competition between any of the two, or more than two things can be there. In this case, there is a competition between inhibitor and the substrate. So there should be some structural relation with the inhibitor as well as the substrate. This concept can be you can come to it, understand it properly via this figure also. This is a competitive inhibition. This is competitive inhibition. In this, you can see this is a substrate, this is an inhibitor, and this is going to bind with the active site shown here. This is a complete size of the enzyme, and the substrate is going to attach here, and enzyme inhibitor is also going to bind here. And there is a competition. Why it is said to be competition? Because it has both are substrate as well as inhibitor is competing to bind at the same site on the enzyme, that is active site. So there is only two chances: either either the enzyme can bind with the substrate, and there will it will proceed to the reaction. So chemical reaction is possible. In other condition, the only other condition here is the inhibitor get bound with the active site, and there is no further chemical reaction is possible. So to either ES complex formation and EI, that is enzyme inhibitor complex formation, are the only chances in case of the competitive inhibition. So here one more thing which we can comment here is the substrate and inhibitor, they are structurally similar. That's why they can have a competition to bind at the same site of the enzyme, that is the active site. And there is only two chances, that is ES formation or EI formation. ES formation reaction is going to proceed. In the EI formation, there is no chances to further reaction possibility. If you plot this in case of the competitive reversible inhibition, if you plot both the plots, the Michaelis-Menten plot and the Lineweaver-Burke plot, in the Michaelis-Menten plot, on the y-axis, it will measure the rate of chemical reaction from 0 onwards, and on the x-axis, it will measure the substrate concentration. If you in this figure, if you put in the presence of inhibitor and in the absence of competitive irreversible inhibitor, we will be having two different graphs. This is a in the absence of the inhibitor. This is a green line in the absence of inhibitor, and in the presence of the inhibitor, this is a red line. So it clear cut depicts that in the competitive reversible inhibition, the maximum rate of chemical reaction which is reached in the presence of inhibitor and in the absence of inhibitor is the same. But what is going to change here is only the Km value is going to change here. You can see here, if you put this should be the mark of the half the Vmax level. If you put the perpendicular line on the both the graphs of in the presence of inhibitor and in the absence of inhibitor, the different points will be intercept points will be getting there. If you put on the perpendicular on the x-axis, the in the presence in the absence of inhibitor, you will be having the Km value somewhere here else, somewhere at this point, somewhere at this point, and in the presence of inhibitor, you will be having Km value somewhere at this point. So in the presence of competitive reversible inhibition, you will be having same Vmax level, but Km value is going to increase. Here, in the presence of competitive inhibition, it will be having higher Km value. If you put it on the Lineweaver plot, this is the Lineweaver plot. The blue line indicating in the absence of inhibitor and the red line indicating in the presence of inhibitor. Here, the y-intercept is same. That means Vmax is the same, whereas the x-intercept are different in case of both the graphs. So it indicates that there is a change in the Km value in the presence of competitive reversible inhibition, and there is a higher level of Km value in case of in the presence of the competitive reversible inhibition. So in the competitive reversible inhibition, Vmax is going to remain the same, whereas Km will change, and in the presence of competitive reversible inhibition, you will be having a high Km value. These are the some of the important examples which are given in various books. The succinate, in the presence of succinate dehydrogenase, get converted to fumarate, but it can be inhibited. The activity of succinate dehydrogenase can be inhibited with the structurally similar to the succinate, that is a malonate. Malonate in the presence of the succinate dehydrogenase can be inhibited, and there is no chances of formation of the fumarate from the succinate. So while giving the example of the competitive reversible inhibition, you should mention which enzyme is inhibited, at the same time which is a substrate, what is a product, and which is a structurally similar inhibitor. So thus succinate dehydrogenase is a classical example of competitive inhibition with succinic acid as a substrate, malonic acid along with the other structurally similar compounds, that is glutaric acid and oxalic acid, are structurally similar. Hence, these are competitive inhibitors. One more example, which is clinically, I think we should mention here, is the example of the methanol poisoning. In the means of methanol poisoning, in the especially in the alcohol poisoning, this in the alcohol poisoning, this methanol poisoning is one of the important ingredient while whenever you say the alcohol poisoning, because ethanol is a normal constituent when you are saying regarding the alcohol poisoning. Alcohol as a liquor form. So alcohol as a liquor form, it should contain the ethanol, but what happens for some of the times, it is being replaced by the methanol. But in the body, methanol and ethanol, they are not treated similarly. Methanol in the after their detoxification, it going to form the formaldehyde under the enzymatic activity of the alcohol dehydrogenase, whereas the ethanol is converted to the acetaldehyde. But the product which is formed from the ethanol is the acetaldehyde, which is having a less toxic effect on the body, whereas the formaldehyde, which is formed after the action of the alcohol dehydrogenase on the methanol, which is comparatively very toxic. So in the ethanol poisoning, it is been said that in the methanol poisoning, it is been said that ethanol is the antidote. And we should give the ethanol whenever there is when a patient comes with a methanol poisoning, because it will compete with the same enzyme, that is alcohol dehydrogenase, and will lead to the less formation of the formaldehyde, as the ethanol is been competing with the methanol to have the same site competition, that is active site of the alcohol dehydrogenase. Other examples of antimetabolites and antivitamins are also there. Another subtype of the reversible inhibition is the non-competitive inhibition, non-competitive reversible inhibition. In a non-competitive reversible inhibition, there is, as the name suggests, there is no competition occurs. So there is no competition between the inhibitor as well as the substrate. Inhibitor is structurally different from the substrate. Inhibitor is structurally different from the substrate, and the binding site with the enzyme is also different. So active site is not the binding site of the inhibitor in case of non-competitive inhibitor to the enzyme. So there can be probability of in this type of reaction, there can be two types of probability can be there. Here we can see in this figure also, E plus S is going to form the ES complex formation, and it will lead to the EP formation, that is a product will be formed. That is obvious. But as the inhibitor can bind in both the condition, it can bind to the, it is separately to the enzyme itself, or in the combination of ES complex. So once it is binds to the enzyme separately, there will be EI plus S. So though no reaction will be possible. In the same manner, ES complex formation, if it binds with the inhibitor, in that condition also there will be no reaction will be proceeded. No reaction will be there, and there will be no product will be formed. So in non-competitive inhibition also, in non-competitive inhibition, there will be two chances are there, and this is comparatively different because there is no competition between the structure and substrate. And so this is how the enzymatic, if you look at the enzyme here, this is a non-competitive inhibition, this is the active site, and this is a substrate which is going to bind this with the active site, whereas this is a non-competitive inhibitor, it is binding somewhere else rather other than the active site. So there is no competition, that's why the respective name is given to the this inhibitor. But if you plot the Michaelis-Menten plot, in which the y-axis is calculating the reaction velocity and x-axis is having the measurement of the substrate concentration. In that case, this is the blue line indicating in the absence of inhibitor, this is a red line in the presence of inhibitor. So here you can clear-cut appreciate that Vmax level is going to change here. Here in the absence of inhibitor, the Vmax is a higher value. But in the presence of inhibitor, non-competitive, what we are discussing here, the non-competitive inhibition is having a less Vmax value. But the Km value is going to remain the same. In this case, the Km value is going to remain the same, which is not in case of the competitive reversible inhibition. Further going ahead, this figure also depicting the same, but in this case of a non-competitive reversible inhibition, if you go on increasing the concentration of inhibitor, you are in the same manner you will be having the less and less and so on. The Vmax level also going to be decreased accordingly. So as and when you go on increasing the non-competitive inhibitor, reversible inhibitor concentration in that specific chemical reaction, you will be having, as accordingly the you increase the inhibitor, and in the same manner you will be having a decrease Vmax value. But in all the levels of the non-competitive reversible inhibition, you will be having the same Km value. So here In the non-competitive reversible elimination, Vmax is going to decrease, whereas Km remains the same. This is Lineweaver-Burke plot, non-competitive inhibitor. This is a red line depicting the non-competitive in the presence of non-competitive reversible inhibition. This is in the absence of the non-competitive reversible inhibition. The x-axis intercept depicting the Km value, it is the same. Y intercept is the same. Y intercept is not same, indicating there is a change in the Vmax value. So in the both the conditions, you should, if possible, you should in the exam also you should mention both the Michaelis-Menten plot as well as the Lineweaver-Burke plot, so as to signify what is the changes in the Km value, what are the changes in the Vmax value. These are few of the examples. Heavy metal ions can non-competitively inhibit the enzyme by binding with the cysteine sulfhydryl group. Example of a non-competitive inhibitor are mostly poisons. Cyanide inhibitor inhibits enzymes with iron or copper as a component of the active site, or the prosthetic group, for example cytochrome C oxidase. So these are the two important examples. And most of these non-competitive inhibitors, they are the heavy metals, and they inhibit they non-competitively inhibit the enzyme by binding with the cysteine sulfhydryl group. Another type under the reversible inhibition is the uncompetitive reversible inhibitor. In uncompetitive reversible inhibition, in this case, the inhibitor does not have any affinity for the free enzyme. Inhibitor binds enzyme substrate complex. So if you compare this uncompetitive with the non-competitive, in case of non-competitive inhibitor, enzyme has an affinity for both the ES complex as well as in the separate identity of the enzyme also. But in this case, it can only bind to the ES complex. That is the difference between the non-competitive and uncompetitive inhibitor. So in case of non-competitive, it can bind to both E plus ES complex, whereas in uncompetitive inhibition, it can bind to only ES complex, not separately to the individual enzyme, or separately to the enzyme it cannot bind, and there is no inhibition possible in the separate form of the enzyme. It can only bind to the ES complex only. Examples of non-competitive inhibition is inhibition of the LDH by the oxalates, inhibition of the alkaline phosphatase by the L-phenylalanine. So these are the important examples you should keep in the mind while writing regarding the enzyme inhibition. Next sub-major class of the enzyme inhibition is the irreversible inhibition. In this inhibition, inhibitor binds with an enzyme tightly, covalently, and form a stable complex. As a result, the enzyme is permanently inactivated. In the previous forms, it was binding to the enzyme with the non-covalent bonds, and the detachability of the enzyme from that inhibitor was easily possible. Whereas in this case, irreversible inhibitor binds with the enzyme with the covalent bonds. So detachment or separation of these two is not possible, and it completely inhibits that enzyme permanently. So there is no chances of reverting the enzymatic activity once there is action of the reversible inhibition. Irreversible inhibition can be divided into two categories. That is group specific inhibitors. In this, that is first of is group specific inhibitor. In this, the enzyme is going to attack on a specific group. These inhibitor react with a specific type of group, whether it is a alkyl group, whether it is a methyl group, or whether it is a sulfhydryl group or any type of amino acid residue of the active site of the enzyme. Here, this example is acetylcholine get converted to acetate plus choline in the presence of acetylcholinesterase. But that DIPF, diisopropyl phosphofluoridate, inhibits the acetylcholinesterase activity, and there is no further reaction of the acetylcholine to be get converted to acetate plus choline. This is one form. Another example is iodoacetate, is an inhibitor of enzyme papain and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. Iodoacetate combines with the sulfhydryl group at the active site of the enzyme and makes them inactive. So here also iodoacetate act as some this group, that is sulfhydryl group, and enzyme activity of the papain and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is completely demolished. Another type under the irreversible inhibition is the suicide inhibition or mechanism based inactivation. This is also very important type of irreversible inhibition. As it is labeled as a suicide inhibition, there is some purpose. It is a special type of irreversible inhibition of enzyme activity. The inhibitor makes use of enzyme own reaction mechanism to inactivate it. Mechanism based inactivity, but because what happens during this chemical reaction, this type of irreversible inhibition, the inhibitor takes part into that enzymatic activity first. First few steps are followed, and after that, that reaction is completely demolished. That the further process is completely stopped. That's why it is also been said that mechanism based inactivation. In suicide inhibition, the structural analog is converted to the more effective inhibitor with the help of the enzyme to be inhibitor. The substrate like compound initially binds with the enzyme, and the first few steps of the pathway are catalyzed. This new product irreversibly binds to the enzyme, and it inhibits the further reaction. So in the society, there is a structural analog is converted to the more effective. So after going through the examples, you will be able to know exactly what is the suicide inhibition. Actually, is it actually what is the actual the suicide inhibition is. Two examples here I have given here. Arachidonic acid in the presence of the cyclooxygenase get converted to prostaglandins, and aspirin is the irreversible inhibition, or what we can say is the suicide inhibitor. Another example is allopurinol in the presence of the xanthine oxidase get converted to alloxanthine. But how the alloxanthine itself is a inhibitor. So in this second example, actually this allopurinol is used as a treatment for the gout, in which the xanthine oxidase is utilized to so as to form the various so as to form the uric acid concentration in the human body. Allopurinol itself take parts into the that chemical reaction, so that it itself get converted to the alloxanthine. But for to form this alloxanthine, it requires the xanthine oxidase. And once that alloxanthine is formed, it itself inhibits the xanthine oxidase permanently. That's why it is been said that allopurinol is a suicide inhibitor of the xanthine oxidase, because itself it takes part into the alloxanthine, and it will not be get converted back to the allopurinol. That's why it is a suicide inhibitor. This is the explanation of the very first example of the aspirin being the suicide inhibitor of the cyclooxygenase. Aspirin irreversibly inhibits the cyclooxygenase 1 and modifies the enzymatic activity of the COX-2. Here, what is going to happen? What is actually going to happen in that reaction is aspirin acetylsalicylic acid in the presence of cyclooxygenase active form. This is a serine group, and it get converted to salicylic acid, and some portion of the aspirin is get bound with the cyclooxygenase. So there is a covalent covalent bond between the some portion of that aspirin, or the portion taken from the aspirin to the cyclooxygenase, and it is get completely inactivated due to that covalent bond formation between the cyclooxygenase and the aspirin. That's why it is a aspirin is said to be the irreversible inhibitor or suicide inhibitor of the cyclooxygenase. And this aspirin is being utilized as a NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Also, it is been in the limited dose. It can be used as a inhibitor of the platelet activity. That's why it is most of the times given to the patients of the MI, myocardial infarction, or those patients of the thrombosis suffering from the excessive thrombosis formation in the that respective person, respective patient. Next is the allosteric inhibition, feedback allosteric inhibition. Actually, this is a completely different type of inhibition, which can be separated out from the reversible inhibition and the irreversible inhibition. In the allosteric inhibition, the enzyme, they are comparatively very different, and there is their nature is completely comparatively very little bit different from the routine enzyme or normal other types of the enzymes. Like all enzymes, allosteric enzymes have catalytic sites which binds the substrate and transform it, but they also have one or more regulatory or allosteric sites. Allosteric enzymes may be inhibited or stimulated by their effector or modifiers. In some multi-enzyme systems, the first enzyme of the sequence is a regulatory enzyme and has a distinctive characteristics as follows. It is inhibited by the end product of a multi-enzyme system. Whenever the end product of such metabolic reaction produced in excess of the cell's needs, the end product of the pathway acts as a specific inhibitor of the first and regulatory enzyme in the pathway. The example I want to mention here is the formation of the heme. For that, the very first enzyme, that is a delta aminolevulinic acid, is the allosteric enzyme, and the final product of the heme synthesis, that is the heme itself. The heme itself inhibits allosterically that very first enzyme, that is the delta aminolevulinic acid, and it inhibits its own production, and via that it regulates the formation of the heme itself. So in that case, the very first enzyme acts as a feedback inhibitor, and this feedback inhibition is said to be allosteric feedback inhibition. The whole enzyme system thus slows down to bring the rate of production of its own end product in it to balance with the cell's needs. Actually, these allosteric inhibitions are the most of the times the rate limiting enzymes, and via that they actually regulate the production of the that's respective compounds. And due to that allosteric feedback inhibition, that allosteric enzyme is being inhibited, and via that the production of the that final compound is very finely regulated. Say for example, here this one is a production of the heme. Here glycine plus succinyl CoA in the presence of alpha aminolevulinic acid synthase, that is delta ALA synthase. First product is formed is the aminolevulinic acid, and further reaction goes on, and finally there is a production of the heme. And if the heme is produced beyond its requirement, beyond its saturation, it will inhibit the very first enzyme, that is a allosteric enzyme, that is delta ALA synthase, and there is no further formation of the heme. So this is nothing but the allosteric feedback inhibition. And how it acts? This allosteric regulation acts due to the presence of the one more site on that allosteric enzyme, that is the allosteric site. And actually this site is a regulatory site, and actually this decides whether to carry out the reaction or not. If the inhibitor may get bound with the allosteric site, there is no further reaction will be forming, and this enzyme is get converted to the T form, or what we can call it as a T form, tout form. and there is no further reaction is there. But if the activator get bound to the allosteric site, there is a conformational changes at the active site, and it get relaxed to accept the substrate to the active site, and there is a further reaction is possible. So this is how the allosteric regulation takes place, and that's why that allosteric enzymes are said to be the rate limiting enzymes, and they are only produced whenever there is a need of the that final compound or whatever the product is it is going to form. In the absence of the requirement of that final compound, allosteric enzymes will not be produced and will not be synthesized in the human body. When you compare the allosteric enzymes Michaelis-Menten plot with the normal enzymes Michaelis-Menten plot, there will be you will be having certain differences. This is a Michaelis-Menten plot. This is a blue line. This is linear phase, then saturation phase, and it enzymes following Michaelis-Menten kinetics show the hyperbolic curve. But in case of the allosteric enzymes, it will be having the sigmoid graph or S-shaped graph you will be having, not the hyperbolic graph which you are getting after the normal enzymatic activity when you plot it into the form of the Michaelis-Menten plot. And if you observe it properly, you will be knowing that there is a cooperative binding of the substrate to the allosteric enzymes. Why it is said to be the cooperative binding? Because initially, even though the substrate is present around the allosteric enzymes, the rate of chemical reaction is comparatively slower as compared to the normal enzyme. But as and when you go on increasing the substrate concentration in a sufficient at a sufficient level or at a sufficient saturation level, the rate of chemical reaction go on increasing up to certain that Vmax level. And that's why initially the substrate binding to the allosteric enzyme is comparatively less. But as and when you go on increasing the substrate concentration, the affinity of the allosteric enzymes to the substrate will also go on increasing. That's why it is said to the cooperative binding of substrate to the enzymes, which is not seen in case of a normal enzymes. So you should be able to understand what is the cooperative binding, which is only present in case of the allosteric enzymes and not in case of the normal enzymes. Substrate product inhibition. Some enzymes react very slowly even though substrate concentration is increased. Example is hexokinase and lipase. Accumulation of a product of reaction in higher concentration can inhibit the reaction. And this is what we have seen during that allosteric inhibition, that is the allosteric feedback inhibition. So few of the enzymes, some enzymes react very slowly even though the substrate concentration is increased, and this property is being utilized in the presence of two isoenzymes forms of this hexokinase. Hexokinase, it cannot be said exactly in the terminology of isoenzymes, but glucokinase, which has a more affinity for the glucose, whereas hexokinase has a less affinity for the glucose. So there is nothing but a change in the Km value. Accumulation of the product of reaction in higher concentration can inhibit the reaction, and that is nothing but the substrate product inhibition. Now, this process of enzyme inhibition, it can be very beautifully utilized during the so many medicinal point of view or from the diagnostic or therapeutic point of view. The sulfonamide is a competitive inhibitor of the para-aminobenzoic acid, which is a great growth factor which is present around the cell membranes of the various prokaryotes, especially the bacteria. And if you add this to, or if you give this sulfonamide to the any person having the bacterial infection, in which this PABA is a growth factor around their cell membrane. The cell membrane will not be formed properly, and there will be killing of that bacteria. So that's why sulfonamide can be utilized for the as a antibiotic. Another inhibitor is allopurinol, similar to the hypoxanthine. This inhibits the enzyme xanthine oxidase. Thus, it is used in the treatment of the gout by reducing the excess amount of the uric acid. As during that suicide inhibition, we have learned how the allopurinol inhibits the xanthine oxidase. Allopurinol itself get converted to alloxanthine in the presence of the xanthine oxidase. And there is no further reaction possible once that alloxanthine is formed, because alloxanthine it in turn is a inhibitor of the xanthine oxidase. So this allopurinol can be utilized in the treatment of the gout. Then aminopterin, similar to the dihydrofolic acid, which acts on the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase, is used in the treatment of the leukemia. Another example of the enzyme inhibition is aspirin, inhibits the cyclooxygenase. That is also example of the suicide inhibition of the COX, that is cyclooxygenase enzyme, catalyze the reaction on biosynthesis of the prostaglandin from the arachidonic acid. Thus, aspirin is used as an anti-inflammatory, antipyretic, analgesic drug. Or in other words, it is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug because of its property of suicide inhibiting the that enzyme, that is cyclooxygenase. Then drugs like mevinolin and leostatin. Leostatin is a competitive inhibitor of the enzyme HMG-CoA reductase used in the hypercholesteremia. So this is yet another example of the enzyme inhibition. But as not only that enzyme inhibition, the regulation of the enzyme activity in the living system is also controlled by the various other factors also. Say, for example, these are the few of the 8 major steps via which in the living cells, especially in the human body, the regulation of the enzyme activity can be very well managed. Very first of that is the allosteric regulation, what was just discussed in detail. Allosteric inhibitor, as there is a allosteric site is there, and if depending upon what type of modifier is acting or it is binding to the allosteric site, it can be either lead into the chemical reaction, or it can stop the chemical reaction depending upon that modifier which is binding to the allosteric site. So this is one way of regulating the enzyme activity. Another is the induction. So whenever there are 2 types of enzymes are there in the human body. Those enzymes which are present in a constant in a state that in equal concentration in the body, whereas some of the enzymes are only synthesized whenever there is a requirement of that product in the body. In the absence of that product, it is not being synthesized in the body. And these are the most of the allosteric enzymes are there. So whenever there is a requirement of that allosteric enzyme, they are synthesized from the stimulating to the DNA, and that process is nothing but the induction, because it avoids the repressor genes, it inhibits the repressor gene on the DNA, and there is production of that regulatory protein, and via that regulatory protein, the allosteric enzymes are synthesized. So this is nothing but the induction. Another is the repression. When you in the absence of induction, repressor genes are in the active state, and there is no production of the that regulatory protein. So repression inhibits the formation of that regulatory enzymes. Another way of regulating the enzyme activity in the living system is activation of latent enzymes. Actually, this is also very important type of enzyme regulation, in which the enzymes are sorry here enzymes are produced in the inactive form, that proenzyme forms, that trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, or pepsinogen. In these forms, the pepsinogen once they are synthesized, they are not in the active form. But once they go to their target area, at which that pepsinogen, trypsinogen, or chymotrypsinogen, they are converted to the pepsin, trypsin, and chymotrypsin respectively. And once they are converted to that final product, they are active to the for their activity as enzymes. So activation of the latent enzymes, they also decides and they also avoids the unnecessary action of the enzymes. Then compartmentation also an important way of dealing with the regulation of the enzyme activity, because in the different sites of the different in the different compartments, different enzyme machinery are there, and they are separated from each other, and via that also they are controlling their own action, or where they are controlling their own regulation of the enzyme. Control of enzyme synthesis via induction and repression. Another way is the enzyme degradation. Once the activity of that enzyme is over, they are degraded. Via this also you can control the enzyme activity. Another is the isoenzymes. I think we'll be completing in these isoenzymes in the next lecture session. Right for now, we stop here. Thank you for kind listening.